Imagine waking up one morning, looking outside, and seeing that the car you have been struggling to make payments on is still sitting exactly where you left it. Maybe you have missed several payments. Maybe the lender has already warned you about repossession, or perhaps you simply stopped driving the vehicle because you assumed that the lender never sends a tow truck. The problem has somehow disappeared. So what happens if a repo car is never picked up? This is an important question because leaving the vehicle sitting in your driveway, on the street, or in a parking lot does not normally make the underlying auto loan disappear. In many situations, once you are in default, the lender may still have rights under your contract and state law to repossess the vehicle, and the exact process varies depending on where you live. The Federal Trade Commission explains that in many states, a lender may be able to repossess a vehicle after default, sometimes without going to court or giving advance notice, although the lender cannot breach the peace while doing so. Now, here is where things get especially important. If the car is never picked up, that does not necessarily mean the lender has forgiven the debt or surrendered its interest in the vehicle. The lender could continue trying to recover the vehicle, contact you about the account, or take other steps allowed by the contract and applicable law. Meanwhile, late payments can continue damaging your credit, and a repossession may remain on your credit reports for up to 7 years. You also should not assume that simply keeping the vehicle untouched solves the problem. In fact, letting the situation sit can create additional complications, especially if insurance, registration, storage, parking, or other costs continue. The smarter approach is to contact the lender or loan servicer and ask for the account status in writing. Find out whether the vehicle has formally been assigned for repossession, whether you have an opportunity to bring the account current, whether reinstatement is available under your state law or contract, and what amount would be required to resolve the default. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau recommends contacting the lender or servicer as soon as you know you are having trouble making payments because some lenders may offer payment arrangements, changes to payment dates, or other options. And remember, if the lender eventually takes the vehicle, the story may not end there. After a vehicle is actually repossessed, one of the biggest misunderstandings is the idea that the debt automatically disappears because the lender has the car. Usually, that is not how it works. The lender may sell the vehicle, often through an auction, and the money from that sale is applied toward what you owe, along with allowable expenses. If the vehicle sells for less than the remaining loan balance and permitted repossession-related costs, you may be left with what is called a deficiency balance. The FTC gives a simple example. If you owe $15,000 and the lender sells the repossessed vehicle for $8,000, the deficiency could be $7,000 plus applicable expenses. In many states, a lender may be able to pursue that remaining balance, including through collection activity or a lawsuit, provided the lender followed applicable repossession and sale requirements. On the other hand, if the vehicle sells for more than the amount owed plus allowable expenses, there can be a surplus that may need to be returned to you. This is why what happens if a repo car is never picked up is not simply a question about whether someone eventually comes for the vehicle. It is really a question about what happens to the loan, the title, your credit, your personal property, and your legal rights while the situation remains unresolved. If the vehicle is eventually repossessed, you may have rights to receive notice before the sale, and depending on your state and circumstances, you may have opportunities to reinstate the loan, redeem the vehicle, or participate in a public sale. If personal belongings are still inside the car, contact the lender or repossession company promptly and ask how to retrieve them. Federal consumer guidance says consumers generally have protections concerning personal property left inside repossessed vehicles, although the precise procedures can depend on state law. Another important point is that repossession costs should not simply be accepted without checking the numbers. Ask the lender for an itemized statement showing the remaining principal, late charges, repossession fees, storage charges, sale expenses, credit vehicles from the sale, and the resulting balance. The CFPB has specifically examined repossession practices and deficiency calculations, including situations involving errors in refunds for financed add-on products that affected deficiency balances. If you believe the repossession was conducted improperly, the vehicle was sold improperly, your personal property was mishandled, or the balance appears incorrect, consider contacting your state attorney general, consumer protection office, a qualified attorney, or a local legal services organization. Most importantly, Do not ignore letters, collection notices, or court papers. A repo vehicle sitting untouched today does not necessarily mean the financial problem has stopped growing. The best move is to understand exactly where your account stands and what options remain available before the situation becomes even harder to resolve. So what happens if a repo car is never picked up? The short answer is that the loan generally does not simply vanish. The vehicle may eventually be recovered, sold, or otherwise handled according to the lender's rights and state law, while you may still have financial obligations connected to the loan. If this situation is happening to you right now, document every communication, request everything important in writing, check your state's specific rights, and act sooner rather than later. Understanding the process can help you avoid unnecessary fees, recognize errors, and make a more informed financial decision.